What are we doing? Say it with me. Board Game Unpopular Opinions are here. 3 new ones just for you, tuning in to let you know what I'm peeved about, what I think we need to change, or things that just suck in our hobby. And again, you can always let me know how wrong I am in the comment section down below. And if you like this sort of thing, subscribe if you want to see Angry Man shout at the clouds a little bit more. That'd be super awesome. We're going for 20,000 this year. We're not going to get it, but you know what? It's good to have goals. Speaking of goals, speaking of not moving the goalposts, the first one up here, it's a good segue actually. The first one up is the Hall of Fames. Now, I touched on this previously, but I feel like this needs to be said and needs to be said a different way, because I was thinking about this the other day. When you're looking at the best games of all time, the trenders and movers and shakers are telling us that we need to have one. So, you know, maybe somebody else will have theirs as well. Because again, lists of lists are awesome in our hobby, right? And all of these other hobbies, all the other hobbies have Hall of Fame, so we need to do it too. And so, okay, we can do that. We can do that. Now, the tricky part with this, and the part that I'm going to say very clearly here, the part that I do not want, right? The part that should not be there. When I think of baseball, when I think of basketball, when I think of football, whichever side of the pond you're on, doesn't really matter, right? It's the Hall of Fame. And fame, right, being the key word there. It sort of is like most valuable player in these other stupid awards in all of these sport games situations. What does fame mean? Fame means a state of being known or talked about by many people, especially on account of notable achievements. Okay. It does not say the Hall of Really Freaking Good. The Hall of this was sort of okay. No. That's where, again, you know, I see these Hall of Fames, and it's going to be a very interesting sort of process, because I will not argue that there isn't a role for games that really helped bring things to light. Catan, absolutely. Dominion, absolutely. Ticket to Ride, absolutely. But just being a well-known name does not mean it should be in there. Do you think Uno should be in the Hall of Fame? I don't actually know. Again, truth be told, I'm not negging on either of those lists. I don't have them in front of me, and I'm purposely not putting them in front of me, so I'm not going to be accused of going after either of these groups. But Uno was the first thing that came to my mind. It's a fun card game to play with my kids. I enjoy it. It's good. And that's where the distinction is with this. What do you think of fame? What do you think is worthy, right? We see these ballots all the time across those other sports. That's where I was going with this. That there are a lot of really good players that don't make the Hall of Fame, because it's not the Hall of really good players. It is the best of the best of the best of the best. And that's where I was going with some of these games, right? Like, there are plenty of these games that I love. That should never be in the Hall of Fame. I said what I said, right? Because it's not about necessarily, individually speaking, what I love. Does it have all of those features? Guards of Atlantis 2. Let's talk about recency, hype, hotness, and all of that smattering. Is that ever going to be in the Hall of Fame? Probably not. How much notoriety does Guards of Atlantis 2 have? It does not pass the smell test in that. Yet it is a freaking wow game, right? But that's where you have to have the Venn diagram of all of these overlaps, right? It can't just have the name. It has to have the significance. It has to have the oomph, right? And so some of these Hall of Fames, to get, you know, clicks on things, they're going to have some stuff that people not in the hobby are going to know too. And how do you feel about that as a compromise? Because some of those are definitely, but like, again, the Uno example, I don't think is a good situation. And so what is that going to look like? Or are we just going to let in, you know, anything with a 7.5 Board Game Geek rating eventually? We're going through the, 10 years from now, what is this going to look like? Are you going to be able to look at this list 10 years from now, 15 years from now and go, yeah, that one was wow, right? Or are you going to look at that list and go, I don't even remember that game? And so that's what we got to be really careful with this. And that's why I'm really concerned. And that's why, honestly, I don't like the concept in the first place, because I think it's too easy to go into the other realm of things, especially if, you know, I don't know how it's being selected in the first place. And I'm sure, again, smarter people than I are doing that. So there won't be any problems with it whatsoever. And I'm probably just fear mongering, and don't worry about it, you know, from any aspect right now. So that's fine. That's fine. I hate app narration. I hate narration as point number 2. I do not like any of these big games to have narration. And I'm fine with, you know, if you like it, but I think it's stupid. I think it's a waste of money. I don't need to hear different voice actors, voice acting, narration that you, again, I am not going to read half of in the first place from a non-narration standpoint. And I know, again, speaking of my own biases, I do not feel like the overarching development of everything needing this huge narrative in these big box games, or these campaign games, or these crawl games, or these lifestyle games is necessary, right? Sometimes you don't need the motivation behind your character. You just do whatever your character does, right? I am not an actor playing a little miniature character. That's a role-playing game. Then I need it. But board games, no. And again, I feel like with all of these campaigns, right? I talk about nearly one a week on Crowdfunding Roundup that are like, here's 300,000 words that we're going to produce. I do not care. And I especially do not want to pay extra for app integration, for voice actors, for cost overhead creep, especially with all these freaking tariffs now as well. This is an over-the-top, completely, utterly unnecessary deluxification. You can make an argument that component upgrades and player boards and multi-level whatevers are, you know, somewhat useful at times. No with this. And so I just can't endorse it at all. Again, I have some good games that can use it. And the one slight positive caveat is most of the time they don't make you use it, which is good. But I think that the cost that even I am paying at the lower level without it is probably indicative of me having to pay for it for everybody. I am subsidizing with my pledge, with my cost, other people's use of that app. And I do not like it. Point number 3. Remakes. Again, I'm not going to tell you we can't remake games. It is the trend right now. I mean, the dual trend is there, right? But remakes are this overarching thing that is ongoing. We're seeing it across the board. Crowdfunding, Champions of Midgard, 10th Anniversary Edition. We saw it with the Firefly situation. But don't have tunnel vision with this, because this is not just a crowdfunding problem either. This is a retail problem. Quacks of Quedlinburg. It's not ever going to be Quacks. Yeah, I'm a Settlers of Catan person, not a Catan person. Boom! Same thing with Quacks. Your boy does not like these remakes because these are not necessarily that much better. You want to know a remake that is that much better? Let me pull out, if I can, the copy of Zoo Vetus. This was a remake that was a ton freaking better. And that's not just me saying it. Cool Vetus is ranked to 3,000 with a 6.5 rating on Board Game Geek. Zoo Vetus is in the top 900 after being out for less than 2 years. And it's going to rise up higher. This is an example of how to do it right. I would make the argument that those small smatterings of examples that I've listed have not significantly elevated it. I can't say that. Champions of Midgard? Bleh, it's the same thing. Quacks? Bleh, it's the same thing. You gave a different art. which again, I always feel like that with the park situation, it's just a way to potentially also milk more money out of the same product. I know there's also some publisher and some licensing issues that go along with that. Sometimes you want to make it your own, but at the same time, right, a lot of this, like I said in another video, is making people feel like their version is inferior when in fact it is not, because of the little tiny, minute, or not at all changes that are going on. This has more in that way. And I'm okay with this. Like I said at the beginning of this part, I'm not against remakes. I'm against remakes that are just reskins, because that is just not consumer friendly whatsoever. That's not environmentally friendly. That's not FOMO friendly. It's not any of those aspects, right? And that's my issue. We're seeing this a lot with card games, and I'm not picking on Magenta because that's happened with some of the other Nizia ones. And that's happened with a few of the Bitewing ones. But again, they've done what they've done. But this has not all been across the board, because sometimes they want to make it better, and sometimes they just want to sell it with a shinier skin on it. It's like video games and the skins, right? Like, I think that's a horrible concept. I would never pay for a video game costume change. And if you would never pay for a video game costume change, why are you freaking paying for the equivalent on the board game tabletop side of things? No freaking sense, but it makes money, so we do it. And as a last side note, the copy of Zubetis that I just put back in the shelf was sitting right next to a copy of Lord of the Rings Confrontation, coming to crowdfunding soon. So we're not even just talking about past games, we already have it on the horizon. Is this going to be any better mechanically? Now, again, it's a slight caveat because it's out of print. But can you actually make the gameplay better? And I don't know. And it doesn't look like they're changing anything. So how do you feel about that then? Yes, positive, it's not out of print anymore. Well, negative, it's exactly the same thing. So again, I'm not going to say this is all bad by any means, but it is still a big conundrum. There you go. Board game opinions that you're going to disagree with. Let me know what you think. Peace out. Stay classy. See you around.